Welcome in to the Bro Force Squad podcast, where we are just a bunch of bros drinking beer and talking movies. This is our spoilers review of Spider-Man No Way Home. I am your host, the Mayor Jeff Hornacek, to review this movie as we do all of the Bro Force Squad movies using the Bro Force Squad criteria, which is the acting, the story, our favorite scene, the impact of the film, and its rewatchability going forward. Brian, you are fresh out the theater, actually, as we're doing this. The trailers have teased, and again, we're going to spoil everything for you, so stop now if you have not seen it. But trailers teased a lot of returning faces, adding to the MCU cast of the Spider-Man universe. Who stood out to you? Who is it good to see back? What'd you think?
I actually think everybody coming back from the other Spider-Man movies did an absolute fantastic job. I think, I think everybody. Jamie Foxx really stood out because he was really, really bad in his debut as Electro, and him coming back. I thought he did a great job. Really redeemed himself from that. Willem Dafoe, dude, he could play that fucking psycho guy, like split personality, great. And then Garfield and Maguire, both who have said, like, yeah, we're pretty much done with Spider-Man. Like, I don't ever want to be him again. They both came back, gave it their all. Like, that was for publicly knowing they don't want to come back and they didn't want to do this, to get those performances out of them, absolutely phenomenal.
So I'll get to that in a second. Yes, Willem Dafoe, I wrote down, is the quintessential comic book villain. His turn as Green Goblin is iconic, and he's back at it in this. And I saw a bunch of interviews, and Amy Pascal and Kevin Feige, obviously, who produced this film and were a huge part of getting all these actors to come back. They said their pitch to the actors was simple. They said, we don't have a script for you, but this is not a cash grab cameo. If you will agree to do this, you are a key part of the plot here. Like, we don't just want you to show up in a scene and have it feel disingenuous or like you're just trying to get a paycheck. Like, you are going to be a part of this thing. And Willem Dafoe said, just give me the fucking suit and I'm back at it. I know what I'm doing here. I think Jamie Foxx, he was probably my least favorite of them, but I do appreciate that they kind of poked fun at how bad his effort was in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And he sort of steered into it. And he's having fun with the role, but this time, at least I felt like he was actually giving it better effort.
He tried.
Right, which is really all I can ask.
He didn't Natalie Portman it.
Yeah, I could talk about Maguire and Garfield for hours. Let me just say this. The three most iconic cinematic moments of my life are in Back to the Future, when Marty stops Biff from assaulting Lorraine, and then his father saves the day, when the Avengers assemble in Avengers Endgame, and the three Spider Bros on the roof in this movie, which we'll get to in a second. And so their performances in this were unbelievable.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to say, I am really glad Zendaya got to stretch her legs in this as MJ. I think this is the most she's been involved plot-wise in any of the MCU Spider-Man movies. And based on what they did with the other two Spider-Men returning, it was really, really essential that this film have the strongest emotional core for Peter, which it's hard to believe in where the multiverse rips open. I think this is the most emotional by far of the three MCU Spider-Man films.
Yeah.
And she's obviously a huge part of that.
Yeah. I love Zendaya. I can't get enough of her. I don't think that there's ever been anything she's in I haven't liked. And yeah, it was nice to see her do her thing. And I think it really helped, too, that her and Tom Holland are obviously in a relationship in real life. And so it just made everything that Peter Parker and MJ went through in this movie feel so much real.
Yeah, I have to say all three of the Spider-Men and their respective love interests have always worked really well for me.
Yep, I agree.
So, all right, moving on to story and plot. I mean, there's a lot here, but we'll probably just touch on most of it in best scene. The synopsis, according to IMDb, says, with Spider-Man's identity now revealed, Peter asks Doctor Strange for help. When a spell goes wrong, dangerous foes from other worlds start to appear, forcing Peter to discover what it truly means to be Spider-Man. So, Brian, I think the concept of how they opened the multiverse and kept it isolated to Spider-Man villains, in theory, worked very well for me. I still think small complaint in the grand scheme of things because I absolutely love this movie. It's my favorite film of the year. Um, is sort of the logic. It felt a little weak around Peter not returning these guys to their home worlds, knowing that yes, they would perish inevitably, but also the fabric of space time and probably the lives of everyone in the universe was at stake. So just because Goblin shows up at a soup kitchen, we have to jeopardize all that. I don't know. What did you think of the story and plot?
I think this is, at the end of the day, you chalk this up to, this is one of those things you either buy it or you don't. You know, I think that to open the multiverse and to get these in, and you have, especially this Spider-Man, his whole thing is he wants to, well, and really just Spider-Man and Peter Parker in general, is he always wants to do the right thing. And yeah, they may have been bad dudes, but they aren't bad. They're corrupted because of one piece of technology or the other that they have aligned themselves with, right?
Yeah.
And so the idea that, hey, I can fix them, you guys can go back to your worlds, we can all have our cake and eat it too, is kind of the driving force behind that. And I buy it. I'm okay. It's one of those things. I'm okay looking past something that may not make 100% sense to me because everything else was executed so well.
I also really liked in the plot how, for probably at least half of the movie, we got Otto Octavius as not being corrupted by the tentacles. I think that was really cool.
Yeah, and again, it's been a little while since I've seen Spider-Man 2, but I thought that they did a really good job of bringing Otto Octavius back to his original, how he was at the beginning of Spider-Man 2, and his, everything starts off with good intentions, and then they go awry from there. And I think that they did a good job of bringing Doc Ock back to that realization of his good intentions. And I think it would have been too convoluted if he were bad and you had all of these villains that were still bad at the end. You might as well just made a Sinister Six movie at that point. Right. And so it worked that he was kind of able to, anti-hero isn't really the right word, but kind of solving.
Yeah, he's a straight villain, and then he's the protagonist again.
I think that it was a good litmus test of saying, hey, look, Peter this works. He can solve this problem for all of you guys. And I don't know, I'm just rambling at this point.
No, that makes sense. Before we move on to best scene, if you have not seen Loki, skip ahead about 30 seconds or a minute. Spoilers for that. But so the multiverse being ripped open, obviously, at the end of Loki and here as well. Going forward, do you predict that these are all just adding to the multiverse splitting open, or are these events somehow related? Because I'm still trying to figure out how the end of Loki matters if this is what rips open the multiverse. And I know we're both very confused about that.
I have no fucking idea. I want to say it's too much of a coincidence that they happen simultaneously at the same time. That Doctor Strange happens to be casting this spell and Loki rips open the multiverse all at the same time. But also, I don't think that you can keep them isolated either, because if it's either it's ripped open or it's not, right? It can't just be like, we can tear it open, but like nobody can really get out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. I literally have no idea. I do think that'll get resolved in Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah.
That helps.
I will say this. What I do know is Marvel has a plan. So
sure.
Let us rest assured with that. All right. Ready for best scene?
I think so.
All right. I mean, there's two obvious ones. I have probably one of the same ones as you, and then I have an honorable mention, which I think was the fulcrum of the whole movie emotionally. What was your favorite scene?
I'm still really fresh out of this movie, like only a couple hours ago, and just trying to wrap my head around all of these great scenes is really, really difficult. I don't think you could pick a great scene. I think you can pick a lot of great moments out of this. Because when Andrew Garfield catches MJ, obviously he learned from killing Gwen in his movie. That was just a great moment. Yeah. Not necessarily a great scene, but a great moment. The end scene when Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker stops Tom Holland's Peter Parker from killing Green Goblin, and they have that
with the glider,
the glider. Yeah, like, again, maybe not the best scene, but just a great fucking moment.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back. Both of those scenes go back and reiterate the fact that Garfield and Tobey Maguire coming back and being game to play, that right there proved they were game to play.
Yeah. The hardest I laughed in the movie was when they were planning their attack on at the Statue of Liberty, like the 3 Spider-Men, and they're numbering off who's which Peter.
Yeah.
Holland goes, all right, I'm Peter number 1. Toby goes, I'm Peter number 2. And really self-deprecatingly, Garfield goes, Peter number 3.
Peter number 3, yeah.
Like, I'll be number 3. Fuck me, right? I was audibly cackling in the theater.
I also really, really like the part whenever they're like, I don't know how to work together with the team. And Tom Holland goes, oh, I do. So I was part of the Avengers. And they're like, awesome, the Avengers. What's that? You were in a band?
Tobey Maguire goes, what is that?
Yeah.
Also, the scene where Andrew Garfield's like, I suck. And Tobey Maguire's like, you're awesome.
Yeah. It's just like everything with those 3 actors in it. If there's a scene with those in it, that's my favorite.
Yeah. And can I say, I told you this off pod, but it is great. Number one, I am so glad that they lied about being in this movie for a year. Even though we didn't really believe them ever, I love that they tried to keep this a secret, did everything they could. Andrew Garfield just vehemently denied. He goes, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not in the movie.
Yeah. After there's fucking set photos of you guys out, and he's like, that wasn't me. I don't know what you're talking about. That right there is what I want out of my actor. Yeah. Deny. Nixon the fuck out of it.
And they're not in a small percentage of the movie. They're in probably 40% of the film.
At least, yeah. I mean, they're in what? Probably 90% of the second act and the entire third act?
Yeah. Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I love that they got into this. They got into everything really, really fast. It picks up right where Far From Home ends, which I think is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we have all the villains back in 30 minutes? 30 minutes in?
Yeah, and I guess the one, you only have a 2.5 hour runtime, so you have to, well, not you only, but you have to devote and allocate that to so many other aspects of the plot. The one thing we didn't get much of was Peter in his senior year of high school, but based on what they did give us in the movie, I mean, that's a sacrifice I'm definitely willing to make.
Yeah, I mean, and how the movie ends, senior doesn't fucking matter anymore, right? Yeah. Like, nobody knows who he is. Like, can he even go back to school?
Yeah, that's true. I don't totally understand that, but I don't kind of like you said about the Peter wanting to keep the villains in his timeline. I don't really need to, because everything else was so well done.
Yeah, you either buy it or you don't. I buy it. Let's move on.
I want to give a quick honorable mention to Aunt May's death scene. Because we never got to see Peter lose Uncle Ben, and this obviously was incredibly important before he met the other Spider-Men, because this was their
that was the connective tissue.
Correct. They were all like, we've held someone we loved and lost them, and we know that you're at a point right now where you have to make a decision on what kind of person you're going to be, and whatever you choose, that's going to basically change the world. So that was a great jumping off point for him to meet the other Spider-Men, and that scene incredibly well acted by Tom Holland. It mirrors very much him losing Tony at the end of Infinity War, but this to me felt even more personal, I feel like.
Yeah,
Endgame, excuse me.
I think that this was way more personal. This hit home a lot more, and Tony helped him and was more of a mentor, where Aunt May was his guardian, his provider, mm-hmm. his rock for all of these movies, right? So her death, I think the stakes of her dying meant so much more.
I totally agree.
Let me back up. Her death meant so much more as far as stakes for Spider-Man.
Right,
Not to Peter specifically. Not that Tony Stark's death was like, oh yeah, he just fucking died, whatever. No, his death was pretty fucking important too, just in a different way.
Right. This had a very personal involvement for Peter. Not that Tony, again, didn't, but I mean, that's the fulcrum of the movie, I think, was that emotional through line. All right, ready for impact?
Yeah.
So to me, this movie is iconic. It will be iconic. It's my favorite movie of the year, and I think 20 years from now we're going to be talking about what they did here, where they brought a worldwide phenomenon in Spider-Man and a character everyone recognizes and brought 3 franchises together and did it with the heart that they did here. Also, it just opens up a whole world, literally, of possibilities. I mean, I've already started to hear rumblings that several X-Men characters and actors who played them in the Foxverse will appear in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And I think that's the great thing about this movie. It blazed a trail and will forever be remembered for pulling off what it did with bringing together the 3 Spider-Men. But also, it is going to change the MCU and I think comic book movies in general forever. Because the idea of the multiverse, now that Marvel has these characters, and there are iconic iterations of them previously, just like Sony had with their other Spider-Men, you can now incorporate them into current franchises, and it makes sense.
Yep.
So what do you think?
I agree 100%. I think that this is a similar accomplishment than what the MCU did with Endgame, or not even Endgame, just the Avengers in 2012. Taking multiple movies and bringing an ensemble movie together, and then being able to break them back up and have their own individual movies. This is kind of the next iteration of that. Whereas, okay, we don't necessarily own all of these properties, but we are able to negotiate and play ball with people to bring them in to just make a great film. And I think that, like you said, is a huge, huge impact on cinema in general. Another thing that I want to talk about is this is my second best theater experience.
Same.
For MCU movies, obviously aside from Endgame. I mean, I don't think anything will be able to top that with all the Avengers assembling at the end. But you had all these beloved characters and beloved actors from these different franchises coming together, and every time one of them came on scene, we got people clapping, we got hooting and hollering. When something happens, we're getting all the gaffes. We're like, oh my God, this is really happening. And again, just a ton of fun. Everybody in my theater was having a fucking blast.
Yeah. When Ned opens up that portal and you see Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man suit turn and look at it, my theater started losing their shit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Third best theater experience of my life. First has to be when the opening crawl started in The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
I remember just grown men crying. Like, Star Wars is back with the Skywalker saga and the original cast. Yeah. Second is Avengers Endgame, that portal scene. I still, to this day, I'll be 90 and I'll get goosebumps about it.
Yeah.
And then third is this, when the 3 Spider-Men assemble. It's iconic. And when you're in the moment and you're already like, this is something I'm going to remember for the next 40 years of my life, it's just this is why we go to the movies, man. This is why we have this podcast. It's like to get excited about this stuff. So people that don't get it or might call you stupid for caring about something this much, fuck them, dude. Because this is why the movies are great, for these moments right here. And I don't think I'm overstating it to say that.
No, I don't think you are at all.
Anything else on Impact?
No, I mean, this is an instant classic.
All right, last one, rewatchability. I'll keep this brief. We're recording this on a Sunday. It'll probably drop Monday. I'm going to see it tomorrow already with my mom. So I'm watching it twice in 3 or 4 days. So yes, it is rewatchable. And to be honest, I can't wait to watch it when it comes out on VOD or streaming somewhere, because when Andrew Garfield and Toby showed up, I couldn't even hear what the fuck they said for a minute because my theater was clapping and freaking out so loud.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously, am I going to rewatch it? Of course, 100% I am. Not only is it an MCU movie, but I love crossover things, and I love multiple movies and series and things like that. This is the top of the mountain of all the Spider-Man franchises, and I like it because I'm going to be able to go back and watch Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, Amazing Spider-Man 1, Amazing Spider-Man 2, Homecoming, Far From Home, and then No Way Home, and this is just the perfect cherry on top to all three of those characters.
Yeah.
I mean, really, this movie kind of put a, what am I trying to say here? This movie kind of closed the emotional door for Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. I mean, when we last saw them, it was, where are these guys at? These Peter Parker's heads are in a weird spot. They've had this loss, and this kind of helped bring their characters full circle and gave their characters some closure, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, so let me ask you this, kind of piggybacking off that. Do you want another Spider-Man after this? I mean, we're going to get one, but do you want one?
I'm ready for Miles Morales.
Yeah. So is Jamie Foxx's Electro.
Yeah. I think that I really like how, if we get another one that is not Miles Morales, I think I want another Andrew Garfield one. I think Tobey's, he had 3. He was able to come through. He did a great job. And then in this one, you really show how he was able to take the skills and everything he learned from his movies and apply them to help Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
I did love hearing Tobey's Peter Parker talk about how him and MJ did eventually fix things. Because obviously the interesting thing, and I know they thought they were going to make a 4th one, but when Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3 ends, him and MJ are not together.
Right.
Which is interesting.
And so,
also, totally not a coincidence, but Sam Raimi, director of the first 3 Spider-Man movies, is the director of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Weird.
Interesting.
Another thing which we didn't even talk about, love the Matt Murdock.
Oh,
dude.
How do we not mention that?
I know. It's just, there's
cool.
so much other stuff that's going on. Like, he obviously is going to show up again later.
Yes.
Whether it's in Doctor Strange or something else, maybe She-Hulk, I don't know. But just
She-Hulk seems like the right place for him.
That seems like the right place. But we'll see where he shows up. Obviously, he's going to show up somewhere. Hell, he may even show up in the Echo show. I don't know.
Yeah. When he caught that brick that came through the window, I was getting Stan Van Gundy vibes. They're like, how'd you do that? He goes, I'm a great lawyer.
That was a great catch.
Yeah.
Great catch. Yeah, so again, this movie just did so much good shit with it. You almost have to watch it again to get everything.
And again, I love that Charlie Cox lied about being in this movie for a year and a half.
Yeah, dude. Like, again, that's what you want. That's what I want in my actors, especially in a day and age where spoilers is an industry. Like, people make money off of spoiling shit. And so for these actors to go, no, we're not going to let that happen, I love it.
Yeah. So much good shit. I feel like we'll think of something about this movie that we love the second we hang up. So maybe on a future episode or in a protein shake, we can talk about it some more. But last thoughts, Brian, on Spider-Man No Way Home.
Again, just a great way to wrap up a trilogy, to kind of give full circle to a character that we have seen. We have seen Spider-Man more than we have seen any other superhero, right? Maybe not Batman.
Yeah, Batman might be the only one.
Batman might be the only other one.
But it's still counting Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. It might be close.
Yeah. So I just think this is a great way to kind of put a nice little bow on Spider-Man and say, all right, we can grow now from here, literally wherever we want to go. They could give us a Tobey Maguire, another Tobey Maguire one, where him and MJ do get back together. They could give us Andrew Garfield, where he is now accepting of the fact that he killed Gwen and him, and we can even see that
His MJ.
His MJ, Shailene Woodley, which they cut out of his movie.
I don't need her back.
I don't need her, but we could get that, or you can move on with Tom Holland Spider-Man trying to either have MJ and Ned remember him and rebuild that friendship, or him mentoring a Miles Morales. We've already met Miles' uncle in Homecoming.
And now we have the symbiote in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes.
As well. So great shit, man. An awesome way. I mean, obviously Matrix still comes out since it's on HBO Max. I'll probably check it out. But this was a great way to end the movie year.
I don't think Matrix is going to be as good as this either. But that's just a personal thing.
Possible. All right, for the Mad Scientist, Brian Banner, I'm the Mayor, Jeff Hornacek. Follow us on Twitter at Bro4Squad. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you find your podcast by typing in Bro Force Squad as 3 separate words, and check out everything that we do on our website, bro4squad.com. Till next time, I need Brian to write a letter of recommendation to get me into MIT.
I'll get right on that. He's awesome. You should accept him.
Can you elaborate a little more?
He's really awesome. You should really accept him.
Okay. You should really? Okay, I'll take that. That works.